Alright, what's going on, you guys? It's your boy 3 Sticky Stacks in this thing, baby, representing TKOG, and I'm coming at you guys with an updated, thank you, Lord Jesus, an updated Salamangreat profile. I think this is a crazy format to be playing Salad in, but this deck is really strong. I ain't gonna lie, like, Salads are just like, they're so resilient, dude. They're so resilient, so resourceful. They make easy comebacks, not like easy comebacks, but they can make like amazing comebacks under pressure. It's not literally like the best deck in the world, but because it has so much utility added to its toolbox, that's where you see the reference coming from Jack of all trades, master of none. It has the ability to set up boards that can still contend with the meta. It's fairly decent going second. It can main a lot of hand traps and tech cards if you want to go that route. And even with Gazelle at 1 and Circle at 1 and no Mirage Stalio, this deck is still very consistent, you guys. So I'm going to get into my list. There are a few card choices I made because I feel like, yes, this deck is good, but sometimes the boards are just too fair, and decks, I'm like, it's just not good enough against everything. So I do have like an alternate win condition in my side deck. You probably can already see it if you're looking. But I'm going to do like an organized profile here, so I'm just going to go through piles of cards. The first pile is my Salad Monsters. You gotta love the Gazelle. This card's crazy. Main part of your game plan is maintaining Gazelle as much as you possibly can. This is a stability card. It gives you your follow-ups. It's an extender. It gives you your recovery. Just looping this off of Sunlight Wolf is just nuts. This card is crazy. There are some interactions where I trigger this on my opponent's turn because I just don't want to die, but I use it to dump Falco and then use Falco's effect to set my Rage or Roar that I use on my opponent. And then next turn, like if Gazelle didn't die, I just bounce it to my hand off the Falco and I just get Gazelle back. Like there's so many cool tricks that you can do with Gazelle. It's just a crazy card in this deck. And then we also have 2 copies of Foxy's. Gotta love Foxy. Again, utility. It's amazing just to have access to like main deck outs to floodgates via Foxy. This card's crazy. It's an extender as well. Just normally don't use effect, and it's like a 1-card Sunlight Wolf. And then we have 2 copies of Jack. Jack is amazing, you guys. This card right here keeps you in the game. Like, it literally keeps you in the game. It's a 1-card access code by itself with no other cards, no other additional cards needed. 2 Spinny. The way I feel about Spinny right now is like, it's easier to use. In the regards of comparing it to Jack, it's easier to use because you don't have to commit your normal summon or Gazelle to like you actually use its effect to special. But it's worse than Jack in the terms of longevity because it obviously gets banished. We're not overlaying this anymore. So Spinny is just like very average. But you need different name extenders to play through interruptions because like most people will try to just stop you from being able to link climb, which means they'll disrupt your normal summon as often as you can, and they'll try to stop every extender they possibly can to make sure that you can't link climb at all so that you can't OTK them. And that is one of the reasons why I feel personally that extenders are necessary in a Salamangreat list, like a fair amount, like at least 5 extenders, because that's going to help you to push past your normal summon choke point. Your normal summon's effect doesn't have to resolve, but if it gets destroyed or bounced or disrupted in any way, even if it's a Book of Moon, you need extenders, and that's why I still feel like cards like this are important. Falco, you gotta love Falco. This card's crazy in this deck, and I actually choose to run the Foul. I think this card is like very like just underrated right now. I can understand why some people just don't like to play it, but again, I'm a big fan of utility as I'm like a shit-all like crackhead. I love my shit-alls, and I love having options like in the terms of variety of what I want for the niche that I'm in right now, and Foul fills those niches where sometimes you need the Foul in certain matchups, and I always just want to have that on command. When it's recurable and it's searchable, you might as well keep it as a 1-off because it's also another extender, believe it or not. If you're normal Salad, you can trigger this, and that way, if they disrupt your normal summon, you still get to special this, so it basically helps you to still get into Bail. And just by making Bail links in this deck, you actually open the door to the realm of possibilities with what this deck can do. For the remaining of the Salad cards, besides the extenders, I am playing and the consistency cards. I have everything organized. I'm playing Sanctuary, Rage. Oh, baby, Rage is so crazy this format. Like, this card is so crazy. I actually think, even though this negates, that Rage is better right now. Rage is harder to play through. Roar is easier to play through. People might not agree with that. But when you're against combo, you can always count on Rage to end a combo's player's turn, depending on how you use the Rage. But when you play against combo and you have Roar, it's easier to play through because it's just literally just one negate. And people might think negates are better, but I feel spot removal cards like Prison, Pankratops, Book of Moon, anything like that, Zodiac Trident, cards that just like literally directly interact with cards to remove them are crazy. And because you can hit up to 3 with Rage, it's just an insane card. I actually wanted to main deck like 2 of it. If it was a slower format, I'd be playing 3 Rage and 2 Roar because I think Rage is just insane. But that is going to be it for the salad package here. I love all the like utility factors that these all provide. Like I said, the cool thing with the Salamangreat monsters is they all fill different niches for scenarios that you might run into, and when you run into that scenario, there's typically a Salamangreat monster in mind that can help you to get out of that. Now I'm going to get into the consistency cards, which is like the gas. These cards just gas you up. They help you to OTK your opponent or set up your optimal turn 1 board. I'm on 2 debug, not because I want to, I just only have to, so I kind of supplemented with some Flame Buffaloes as well. So 2 debug, 2 Buffalo, these are your consistency cards. I feel like Xseed is just crazy. If you're resolving Xseed, that means you have the Update Jammer Transcode Access Code played. So that means like if you resolve Xseed and they don't have the nib, you can OTK your opponent with a double damage or just a double attack access code via the Update Jammer, which is just crazy. Like Parallel Xseed is very crazy in this deck. It's a really strong card. I just can't see myself playing without it because this deck loses a lot of power. It already struggles in the consistency department. Like it has a lot of decent like generic cards that help you to search your cards out. But when it comes to playing under pressure and through hand traps, you really need cards like Xseed. It's like an extender and a consistency card because this also gets you one of your win conditions like on command. So I really love Xseed a lot in this deck. I'm also on triple Desires. I kind of hate playing Desires in a deck with so many 1-ups because this deck has so many. Like I really hate it. But at the same time, like I'd rather play the consistency cards to make sure that I can actually see my engine, to play my engine. Because like the Salad engine is so good that once it gets going, bro, like it has a snowballing factor. And your second and third turn are always better than your first. Like every turn past your first turn when your graveyard setup is just crazy. You typically have so many free bodies that are coming out that you can play through so much pressure. But the problem with this deck is like getting the ball rolling in the first place. So like you could honestly play 3 more hand traps, but I just feel like Desires is a necessary evil, even though I hate, and I mean I just hate banishing my 1-ups. And then I'm on 3 mining and then 1 circle. You actually have 3, 4, 7 gazelles, technically speaking, due to the 4 direct ways to search it, and then 2 more via the Lady Debug normal summon, and the actual physical copy of Gazelle. If I had 3 debugs, it'd be crazier. But you are seeing Gazelle pretty often. Like, just imagine if Circle ever came back to 3. I think that would just change a lot for this deck. And if Gazelle came back to 3, even if we didn't get Mirage Galio, just having 3 Gazelles and 3 Circles makes this deck just nuts. Like, actually, it'd probably be tier 1 all over again. But these are the consistency cards. Xseed is not really, but I kind of kept it in the same category because it's an alternate way to get to one of your win conditions with ease, because it's very easy. Normal summon Xseed, game. It's like resolving debug. It's just game. But I love all of these. You just can't really play it without these. They're very important. Actually, I'm also going to go ahead and put the Gazelle down in this pile as well, because Gazelle lets you play your engine. And like I said, the Salad engine is good enough right now, like, to still beat a lot of the best decks. Recursive, like, a recursive Roar for me, I mean, not Roar, but Rage is just way too broken. Like, being able to pop 2 to 3 consistently every single turn and dumping that Gazelle to set it again so you can flip it on your turn, or flip the Roar, set the Roar off the Gazelle via Falco, so that you have Roar at the start of your turn live so that you don't have to worry about Nibiru. I think like interactions like that can come up, you just have to make the proper read and know how to do that. Because this deck seems very simple, but like in the hands of a good player, Salamangreats are a great deck, to be honest. For hand traps, I'm actually on 3 rocks. The best hand trap to play in this deck, for the literal fact of the synergistic value that it has, is Ash Blossom. Thank you, Lord Jesus. I'm on 3 Imperms. Doesn't play in the Call By, doesn't play in the Talents. Draw it as your 6th card. It might be average, but it's very versatile. And then Double Skullmeister. Just gotta hate Dinos, gotta hate Virtual Worlds, right? You don't want to be like loose to those decks. So like you could honestly change the hand trap lineup. You could play more, but I feel like just main decking these are fine, and you side deck more if you need them. Because you want your main deck to be as consistent as possible game one, because game one is more important for this kind of deck. Because once you start side decking, there's not like a lot that you can side out without messing with your engine. Because like if you're siding in like 6+ cards, the reality is you're probably going to need more hand traps, which means you're either looking at touching Salamangreat cards, touching gas starters, or touching your extenders, and you can't ever cut any of your traps. So I feel like having a consistent deck, having an overall more consistent deck is really important game one, because getting that game one makes it a lot easier so that games 2 and 3, it's not going to be as stressful because like I said, if you're siding in any more than 6 cards, which sometimes you have to, it really does kind of hurt because you never want to touch any of your salad cards. You never want to touch the minings, the desires, the debugs, what are these cards called again? The flame buffaloes, and you never want to touch the salad traps, and you don't want to touch your hand traps. It's really, really hard to figure out what you want to cut. Sometimes you end up cutting okay, I'll take a spinny out, I'll take a jack out, I'll take out the foul, it might not come up, I'll take out the foxy, and then you run into those weird hands, and then you also run into the risk of desires. So that's why I value consistency game one, and I don't want to side deck into more hand traps or anything like that. I mean, I don't want to main deck a buttload of hand traps, because I want my deck to be as consistent as possible game one. That's just my opinion though. And for extenders, I'm on this broken card right here. Soul Charge on legs, recurable, and just always being able to see this card is nuts. You play through so much with Will. It's also a way to play through Nib. You just don't, when you're playing through Nib, you just don't use Sanctuary's effect yet. Will back your Sunlight Wolf and then relink it off Sanctuary so that your Rage or your Roar, not necessarily your Roar, but so that your Rage is live for 2. This card's actually crazy. It snowballs out of control. Like I said, every turn past your first turn in this deck just gets nuts. I'm actually very big on Foolish Burial. I think it's great in this deck. I think that it offers basically 3 other third Spinny, a third Jack, a third Foxy. It offers so much utility in this deck. It sometimes can make your hands unbreak your hands just to get a Balinx play. You can Foolish a Foxy, discard a Salad card, bring him out, pop a Spell Trap on the way, and get your Balinx. Because like I said, once you summon Balinx in this deck, you open up windows of opportunity for yourself. And then I'm also on Reborn. I just feel just having enough extenders, 5 minimum in this kind of deck, when you're normal summon reliant, in the regards that if your normal summon gets negated and destroyed or bounced or Book of Moon or anything banished, it really can hurt this deck a lot. But if your normal summon gets negated and not destroyed, it's totally fine. But you need those extenders for when they disrupt your normal and you don't have it on board anymore. And that also hurts cards like Spinny, because you can't actually, you know what I mean? You can't target anything on the field if it's gone. So I feel these cards are just very necessary. You want to play extenders, or you can play a solid list, like I said, with way more hand traps and less consistency cards and less hand traps. So then you'll run into problems where your hand dies to 1 or 2 hand traps, and I don't like that. So that's why I play the list I play. I like 3 Balinx. Obviously, this card's nuts. You actually want to make sure that if you can, get you an extra copy of Bell Engrave. You want to be making that read. You want to make sure that you have literally 1 engraved for your turn, for your opponent's turn, and another already engraved for your opponent's turn. For your turn, your next turn coming up. So I feel setting up with multiple bells turn 1 is also a really good way to play around different interactions. Especially, and I mean especially if you're up against Zodiacs, you want 2 bells engraved because you're going to use 1 on your turn to protect yourself and another if they're trying to trident you and you can't get bell engraved yet. That's why sometimes it is correct to put 2 engraved. This card is really strong. It plays around a lot of different things because it protects any Salamangreat cards from destruction. And triple Sunlight Wolf. Sunlight Wolf is the man. This card is nuts. +2 every turn. Yes, sir. Thank you. Hand trap, hand trap, hand trap. Give me my cards back. Give me my cards back. This card's crazy, you guys. This card's crazy. Resources, bro. That's where this deck can beat a lot of decks just in the grind. And it's also because of access code and update jammer and transcode talker. You don't always have to play the slow game. But sometimes you want to just to play it safe. You can just poke here and there and get your damage in little by little in incremental value over the course of a couple turns versus dying to Nibiru when you don't have the extender. Double Helio. Gotta love this card. One of the cool interactions of Helio is literally like if you have a nib in your grave, or if your opponent has like a big monster in field and you have a little monster. So the gist of it is like he can make a big monster small or make a little monster big. So you can even target one of your big monsters in grave and your own Palinks, for example, and it'll become huge. So this also helps you to OTK a lot easier. And the card's nuts. Like Balinks and like all of these cards, like Helio, like Sunlight Wolf, Balinks, they're all really good. Like they have seemingly average effects on pen and paper, but the applications for the scenarios they come up, like, oh my goodness, these cards just like are so good. And then I'm on Linkuriboh, not Linkuriboh, and the Splash Mage, Update Jammer. Splash Mage, you normally like you're going into Splash, Update, and Transcode and Access Code, typically in the same turn. And I'm also on Baguska and Abyss Dweller, the two rank 4 floodgates that I chose for either the Exceed or like if you're on like the if you're making the Jack Jaguar plays and you're not playing around the Kaijus, because sometimes you want to use the Jack Jaguar to make the other Balinks, but if you don't care, you're using the Jack plus another level 4, like it could even be the Foul, and you're making your Dweller that way. You don't always need Exceed to make your rank 4s. Sometimes Exceed is a lot better for OTKing, because like literally, like I said, normal summon Cyberburst plus Exceed is literally like, okay, Bell, Update Jammer, Update Jammer, and Bell into Transcode, bring this back, make those into Access Code, and you already have, like you can even go into Splash Mage just to get more attributes engraved, but you already have like 3 pops off of your Access Code, and you can attack twice, so. Like I said, Exceed, like Parallel Exceed is just like really crazy in this deck. And my win condition, that I feel like makes Salamangreats a bit less fair for when they, like, just you're playing against degenerate strategies, is 3 Iblis. This already cannot be crashed due to Sanctuary's effect when you're giving your opponent Ibli, and how you prevent them from like getting a generic link 2-up is you try to get access to Rage as consistently as possible. I might even consider playing Trap Tricks, because when I give my opponent Ibli, I want Rage. Like I want Rage, or you could consider playing hand traps that like clear cards. Like the only ones that come to mind are like Gamma, which doesn't work, and then like Ghost Ogre. So I feel like at that point, like you just really need Rage, or Book of Moon, or Compulsory Evacuation Device, Crackdown. But since Rage is archetype specific and it's more consistent and easy to see, that's why I side deck 2 more Rage. And this card's already crazy, this format, but just giving your opponent the Ibli lock and setting up the Rage is nuts. Obviously, Ibli is not good in the consistency department. It doesn't help you to trade like any value to get into any more solid cards, minus the Bell interaction. But I will say, like, it's worth it. If you have the setup, you can just make the Ibli. Like, you can commit to the Ibli. It's just another win condition, and I really like it. I feel like Salads need a card like this just to, like, be degenerate in some way, shape, or form. And then 2 more Roars. The rest of the side deck's up to you, but I do like to side in on these cards. I feel like they're better than, like, Gozen Match and Imperial Order and stuff like that. Like, those cards are good, too, in their own regard. I will put respect on them, but I like these, to be honest. I do. I feel like Rage just like beats like everything, including the trap decks. It's just a crazy card. I really love Rage. It's one of my favorite solid cards. And yeah, that is the deck profile. Thank you, Father. Thank you guys for watching this. Jesus loves you. God bless you. Whew. And what do I typically say? God bless you. Make good choices. Don't hurt your brain cells. Stay tuned for future content. And peace.